I'm trying a new intro. So yeah, it's that's what the podcast is about, right? But welcome to the newcomers, honestly, where I talk to immigrants like myself about what it means to be an immigrant. Today, I'm speaking to Bukky Wonda. I love that name, actually. Like, I want to actually say Bukky Wonder Woman. But if there's one thing that I've really loved about what we talked about here was something Bukky said is find optimistic people. Because immigration is so difficult that, and you already have a ton of things that are going through your head that act as dark clouds, that you don't want to find people who all they come and do to you is make things worse. I'm not saying find people who their heads are up in the clouds. No. Find people who are optimistic, who have agency, who are persistent, but who are optimistic about the future. Fellow immigrants like yourself, just find those people. That's just all. I think that's for me. If you want to bounce off here, just take that. Find optimistic people. Let's get into it. Let's get to it. So, 11 years. That's. I want to ask what was hard, what was easy. But I think the first question is, how did you see the future and run away from Nigeria that early?
Well, I want to say thanks to my brother. Shout out to my brother, Tunde. I remember, then it was like when you are part of like maybe the middle class or upper middle class, it was kind of like the dream. Your parents want you to go and study abroad. And I would say, like, I was privileged, I come from an upper middle class. And so my brother, I'm the second, and my older brother went to the UK. And so he going to the UK, it was around the time when I think UK had something where you could go stay back for a year, then get sponsored, and then they canceled that. So when I was about to go, when I was planning to go, they canceled it. So my dad was
Oh,
like,
damn.
"Oh, Bookie," because I wasn't even thinking about going abroad just because my brother went. And my dad just came back one day and just said, "Bookie, do you want to travel?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And then it was like, "Okay, do we do UK?" And then it was through my brother because I wasn't exposed to anything outside of Nigeria. That is like, "Oh, there's Canada, there's US," and I would not recommend Canada if you want to stay back. At least work before you go back, because UK now has a policy: once you're done with school, you have to go back. There's no opportunity to stay for up to a year. So the choice was simple: US or UK.
Yes, or
Right.
Canada.
Sorry, US or Canada. And I didn't know anything about Canada. I mean, US, you kind of know it by, virtue of Hollywood, white
Yeah.
movies and things like that. And so, and then when I started researching, the research was overwhelming because there are 50 states in the US. And I think, and then most of the schools, the master's program was quite expensive. I think it was just me not knowing how to search or research. My brother did help out in a few ways to help me out. But eventually, I think Canada chose me. That's the way I would like to say, because while I was searching, I actually found a school. I think I found Maple, one of this Maple Leave education something in Nigeria. So I went to the office, even though I didn't end up using them, but I think that kind of gave me an idea of the kind of schools. Eventually, I found a school that I applied for in BC, and one day my dad came back and he said, "Oh, there's this thing that he saw for Canada Expo that is happening at Transcorp. I think it was Hilton at the time, what it was called." And I was like, "Oh, I think you should go." So I went. It was this particular school that was there, St. Mary's University, out of Halifax. And that was it. I went for it and I was just like, yes, I've always been a finance person. I studied accounting for my university degree. And so now I've always wanted to do finance, but I found a school that was like an MBA international thingy. So it wasn't really like what I would have wanted to do. So I've always been fascinated with finance, like from my third year in university, I was just fascinated by, mergers and acquisitions and all the finance stuff. So when I saw this, I was like, yes, this is it. This is the program. And that was it. Like, so I feel like Canada actually just chose me. In fact, when I started telling people I was going to Canada, everyone was like shocked. That place, do you know how cold that place is? There was like, I do not have anybody that just said congratulations.
Are
Everyone
you
was just like, that
serious?
place, I'm serious. They were just like, wow, you're going to that cold country. That's the responses. And so at some point I started getting scared because again, I was
Yeah.
young. I was like my early 20s, I wasn't exposed. The internet is not what it is. There was no social media. There was no Instagram to have told me about the jackpot life or anything, what it looked like. So we were the brand new people that came, and being younger as well. The other people that mostly had come were at least older. So they were a bit exposed. Maybe some of them had traveled as a result of work. So they had information, or they had even used agents that understood that were in the system. They had used maybe immigration consultants here, people that were exposed to the system. But I didn't know that. So I did my own application myself. I did use, a licensed person for the immigration part of it. But then, yeah, yeah, it's 11 years. It's going to be 12 years this year, actually. So,
How do you feel? Like, if you look back at the Bukky that came here 11 years ago, like, how do you feel about the choices she's made so far?
that's a dicey question.
Yeah, I know. Because immigration is such a complex thing. It's so bittersweet.
Yeah, it is. I came here when I was still, I would not say, I was still young when I came here. I didn't have any family here. All of my siblings are now here. I have four siblings and they're here. Thanks to me, I'm an
Your
immigration
your
expert.
brother moved. Your brother moved down here from the
Oh
UK.
yeah, my
Oh,
my brother eventually had to go back to Nigeria because he didn't
yeah.
get sponsorship. So eventually he's moved here. So, I have three siblings here, one in the US, and you know, it's a bittersweet in terms of obviously there's so many things I'm proud of, but then
Hmm.
there are also so many things I feel like, when I say sometimes people complain about, while I know that Canada has changed significantly from when I came in here, but the Canada we came to wasn't as rosy as people claim to be. In fact, people have it easier because there's knowledge, there's information, unless you're not willing to seek it. There are services you can pay for. Then there were not even services to pay for because I came in as an international student. So imagine you coming to a program and you paid $35,000 for 1 year. I was privileged to get a scholarship in school, not before, because I was on the top, I think 90% of the thing. So I was able to get a scholarship, that helped not offset the cost of tuition, but offset like my living expense. So that helped me out. But imagine paying 35,000 for a 1 year program. Although I did get 3 years postgraduate work permit, but you're done with school, you go to the help center, they can't help you because you're not a permanent resident. And there were not even like paid services that you even know because there was no internet that interconnected us today, like the social media that we see of today, that at least there's a service you can pay for. So when I see sometimes, and I know that maybe this is not what you asked me, but maybe because I work in the immigration space, but when I see people complain a lot, sometimes I want to slap them because I'm like, you have it easier. I'm serious. And while I don't do mentorship as a whole, everybody that I've been able to walk through, I've seen that they did not struggle when they come here because there's a way to think when you move to a place like this that can set you apart. But because we sometimes just do the masses, follow what everybody says and not willing to invest in ourselves because we feel that the only investment we should make is getting to Canada.
That's the biggest mistake you can make.
That's the biggest mistake. The only investment most people are willing to make is getting to Canada. And then once they get here, it's like, oh no, I cannot afford that. But you pay your rent every month because you know you'll be kicked out.
I mean, I feel like that
So,
thing,
so it's a bit dicey, but like honestly, like
yeah,
it's one of
yeah.
those topics that I can go on and on because I've seen both sides. I've dealt with thousands of people. because of my work. So I'm not saying that obviously some people have justifiable reasons, but
Yeah.
regardless of how justifiable the reasons are, my brother, I think my opinion still stands, but you know what? Let's move on from this before people start, you know, before people start like, sending me some death threats for
No,
speaking this
no
way.
one, no one will do that. Now, I mean, well, human beings can be funny, I can't rule anything out, but I don't think anyone will do that. I mean, I hear you, I hear you. I think the way I look at it is when you move to a new country, especially if you didn't have to, like, if you're a refugee, you moved away because of war, like you're on exile, just those kind of things. I can get it. You weren't prepared and all that stuff. And so, and then you're even mentally, you're not even there. You wish you were back home. This is not what you wanted to do, but you had to be here. That's a different conversation. But let's say you come as a high skilled immigrant, international students, PR, like federal, I came as a PR, federal skilled, FSW stream. When I tell people that I prepped to come to Canada for 2 years before I came, they look at me like as if, like, what are you talking? I'm like, I spent 2 years prepping to come to Canada. I did an online course at Miami Art School, I did an online course. I spoke to over 30, 40 people working in my industry, just calls like, hey, I'm moving to Canada in January of 2021. Please, I just want to know what's happening in the industry. I was working, doing freelance work for people here.
And so I'm sure that your journey would have been, I'm not saying rosy, but it would have been a better soft landing.
I got a job. I got my first job in 6 weeks. I changed to another job in two. So people say my story is not normal. I got my first job in 6 weeks. I got another job in after like a month. You know, and
But you know what? I'm gonna tell you that your story is actually normal. Because my brother did exactly the same thing. When my brother, see, the challenge that we have, especially when we're coming from maybe Nigeria, as Africans, we want to escape. And I get it. Sometimes life is so hard, like it's just like there's no point staying back. But my brother was also the same way. I told him, the worst thing you're going to do is to just come here, keep your job, and plan your exit. So he did his PR, he came to land, went back home. I told him about a career coach. He paid for a career coach.
yeah,
While it did not help him like get a job, but it helped him to put his resume together.
yeah,
It set him up with some of the mindset. And then, she gave obviously some tips. And even that, just especially when it's coming even from an external person, just even helps.
yeah,
And he started reaching out. My brother got a job in less than 4 weeks of landing. Because when he was speaking to people before he came, they all told him, come first.
yeah.
But
Always
even
that's
when he
not.
came, none of those things. But he just proactively started following all the recruiters. He's an accountant. He obviously had a CPA because he converted right away. So that was part of the things he did. He converted before he moved. So by the time he was landing, he was already a CPA.
Yeah.
So that hurdle was not there.
Hmm.
You're in a licensed field and then you just pack all your bags and come. When you could take 1 or 2 years to actually relicense so that you don't come in here and feel like, oh, this space is a struggle. So again, everybody that I've seen that have done this systematically have actually won faster.
But now I agree. Okay, I agree. You know.
I know it's like we're talking about immigrants.
Yeah, it's all part of the conversation for me, honestly, because it's because these are all the lessons, and I agree. And but what I want to just kind of ask out there is that, but there's some of all these systematic issues that happen that exist. Like the kind, for example, there's a kind of experience one that sometimes just shows up, and because what I'm just trying to say is I feel like there's just a balance somewhere. It's like there are people who try and it just works out for them. There's also people who still try everything, and for some reason, it just feels like it's not working out. They either eventually get the kind of job they want, you know. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that you're better off trying and being systematic about it than not. I
They're
think that's the
not. Yeah.
lesson there. Like, do that, then let it be that you come in and it doesn't work out. Then say, oh, you don't do anything at all. Because honestly,
So I'll give you an example. In 2021.
mhm,
So our business was going through a challenge. We had just lost close to $200,000. I'm not going to
damn,
go into the story of, but being a small business owner, losing 200,000 in your second year in business
jeez,
at the end of 2021, like I was just like I was crying every day in December, and I remember I was even thinking about, like what can I do? Like I'd not worked in like how many years for someone else. And so I was even like thinking about going babysitting. I was like, I just needed something to make money because I mean, I used to babysit, so it wasn't a big deal. And my friend was like, okay, you're way too big for that. What about this course? At the time, I told her about Scrum, because she was telling me she wanted to change careers. So I told her about it, and she was like, what about this thing that you told me about? Why don't you consider it? I'm like, that's like a different career. She was like, even if it's just a stopgap until business picks up again. So I said, okay. So again, I never go into anything. And I think this is why I'm always like, if you actually seek help, you are going to get the help. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to be rosy. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. But you know that eventually I'm going to break through. If it's 5 weeks, if it's 6 months, 6 months doesn't mean that you're not doing anything else. It's just like at least there's a path to where
yeah.
I'm going to. And so this happened in December. I wrote all my exams that I needed to write in 1 week. Because if I'm dedicated to something, I wrote it in 1 week. Just a week before Christmas. And then I got a coach. I had to pay. I told my friend about this thing, I think in September. She was sitting there saying, like the money. And I'm just like, in my head at the time, because I could not understand why she was not willing to invest. Because I've always been a person that, even for my business, the question I ask for myself is, can I get value from this thing? And it's not like maybe I've always taken, it's not like I had money. I had to take money from my line of credit to use to pay for that. But I told myself, if I actually succeed in this, then I can pay off that line of credit back. So that's the mindset that I have. And so I went in, and by February 15th, I started my job. From December, I think it was December 17th, I started this whole process. I started my job. My friend eventually got even a way better job, but she would not have invested if I had not pushed her. But because I was willing to do it, then she was just like, okay, I'll take the risk. But that's how most people are. We are willing to invest in everything, buy a fancy house, go and put in down payment and be paying $700 a
You'll
month.
give her trouble.
I'm serious, but that's the thing. But we don't mind paying $700 a month on a car note.
You'll give her trouble, Bukky. You'll give her trouble.
See, so that's why I said I have experiences when it comes to this thing. But I was able to, if I know other people that tried to get into the Scrum role, and they couldn't because they were trying to like, oh, I can figure it out myself because like, oh, this person did it and it works for them. I'm like, if you're a self-starter and you know how to like, you can research, you're willing to be dogged. Most people are not. It's not a weakness, it's just knowing who you are. If you need help, get it.
I have a thought, like I have a, it's interesting because that thing you say, that is troublesome. It's very troublesome because, I won't say it on here because it's very controversial.
I have so many examples that I cannot share before they block me out of so many places. But like again, there's even an example right now. So tech sales is something that people can easily get into, especially as we look at jobs of the future.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many platforms. Who's going to sell it? The where tech is now is not even the tech skills anymore. It's the people that are going to sell it. So if you're looking to position yourself, that's where you should be trying to position yourself. And again, I'm not going to go into the details, but there's a coach that I recommended to someone because she was at that point where it's like, I'm ready to move on. This is a new person in Canada, and she's just like, I'm ready to move on to do something else. And she has gotten her first job again, proactive. That's why I do not buy the excuse. I do not. I don't care how
Wookie,
people. See, I
Wookie,
get it that they're
give people some space. Just give them small,
okay. Let me
small,
let me let, let me let me
small,
just let me
small,
just pause that one. But like again,
small.
small, small. But anyways, moving on. I was just like, okay, when she told me that, okay, she wanted to. So I found this person on LinkedIn. I'm like, I've been seeing this person. Immediately she spoke to this person, she was like, okay, she figured out this is what she wants to do. She's done within less than 6 weeks, she's done 5 interviews, and it's just now waiting for like an offer, at least from one of those interviews. And she was just like, man, if I try to do this on my own, and she
Yeah.
had even tried to apply by herself, she's like, now I know why. There's no way on earth I would have, they would have considered me because my resume was nothing to write. It's not like it wasn't good, but it was not speaking the language.
You
And
know,
this is also an immigrant with an accent, and nobody cares in
you're
that
I think
aspect.
yeah, I think you're touching on something because as you're talking, I was just thinking about it in my head. I think you're touching on something that is more cultural than it is habitual. I don't know if that, what I said makes sense. Here's why I say that. And let's use Nigerians because we're both Nigerians. We know our people and stuff. You know that in Nigeria, we don't have coaches. We don't really do coaching in Nigeria. It's
We
not
don't
a
even believe in service. We don't.
yeah.
We're
It's
not
not.
a service-oriented
Yeah, it's not a
country.
thing. So, because I hear you on that. I've seen what the power of speaking to someone who's done it before you and who knows how that thing works can unlock. Just talking one conversation with a domain expert can literally unlock 10x growth for you. But that's not a thing that we see back home. And so when we move here, a lot of us struggle with that idea that, I have to you can do without it if you want, but
Yeah.
a lot of your life will get easier if you can find someone who understands that thing and that person coaches you through that problem. Because when I talk to my Western friends, it's for them it's an easy call because I think it's part of the
They, they,
culture.
they
Just
they have a
yeah,
network that they can, yeah.
yeah, they have part of the culture. They see you can talk to a coach, talk to someone to coach you through the issue. All those things. I mean, it still doesn't change the fact that there's a ton of people who don't know what they're doing. They say they're coaches. Just that there's that. But I feel like it's a cultural thing that is just we need to learn how to pay for those kind of services because you're also right. I think even the second order effect of that is that we don't even pay for services like that. So when how in Nigeria, when you say someone, I want to build a business plan for you, the person will be like, they will start telling you that why do you need a business plan?
But
Why?
yeah, I agree. I agree.
So,
Yeah, and
you
I
know,
think you do have a point on that. That it's actually a cultural thing,
yeah,
because we don't believe not maybe yeah because it's not something we're exposed to. So
yeah,
it's a new phenomenon when you come in here and you
yeah.
find out, oh, I have to, and even it's not even paying for a coach because maybe that's even like, but it's also being able to I think one of the other big parts that I always say to people is be careful who you listen to
Oh gosh,
when you first, like the very first person. I
oh
remembered my
gosh.
brother coming in here. I had referred him, like this person is like a big CPA. He's someone I have a relationship with. So I was expecting, because my brother is a CPA, like it's not like trying to get a CPA. He has experience working in the UK, at least for at least 2 years. He has experience working in downstream, upstream oil and gas in Nigeria. And then you come to tell this person, like it's someone that I respect. I lost all my respect for him after I referred my brother to him. And he told
Don't
my
go
brother
there.
to go do a start, like to go do a survivor job. And I'm like, seriously? I just told my brother, please remove it. Forget that you ever heard that. Like, erase it from your mind. It did not happen. I'm like, even if you want to get like a small job, it would not be like a survivor job in the way he said it. It's like all of us have to do it. I'm like, no, no, I don't agree. Like, yes, maybe say, oh, maybe you have to do accounts payable. Because that's like a step down. Maybe you have to do like an account assistant, something still within your, maybe a bookkeeper. I get it. But not like, oh, a survivor job that you just go and work any menial job. I was so disappointed and I told my brother. And 3 weeks after that, he got a job because he did the thing that you are supposed to do. In his case, again, he had an advantage because he was already a CPA. But I just feel like the voice that you listen to
Yeah.
is so, I cannot overemphasize it. This is why, for me, I remembered when I first got my first job in Canada. I worked at CIBC. That was my very first job. And when I got the job, everyone thought I got a teller job. And I was like, no, I didn't get a teller job. I got a financial advisor role. And people were shocked because they expected that you needed to start from the bottom. But meanwhile, I had another voice that told me, like, that financial advisor is a piece of cake. Like, what is very basic. Because why? The person was in the role. And it's like, Bukky, with your master's, you should not even be doing this job. You're above that job. However, it's still a good start. Because in some ways, it's still a bit professional. So I never had in mind that I was ever going to do a teller. So as a result,
Hmm.
I got into that financial, it's called different things, but RBC calls it banking advisor, Scotia calls it, but it was financial services rep. But that's how I got into the role. So what felt like a big deal to other people was just normal for me. And I was able to help other people
Hmm.
transition into those roles, making sure they never started as customer service rep because that's what everybody was telling them. I'm like, no, you're too big for that role. This is how we are going to redo your resume. Because you already have the skills. We just need to highlight it on your resume to make sure that they can see it and you don't shortchange yourself.
I think one big thing for me is I've kind of made peace with the fact that there will always be people like that, like people who will always either say that you must go through what they went through, which is where you hear things like "we all did it, so you should do it," or people who lack agency and who just let life happen to them, and I'm trying to be empathetic here because I'm like, I don't understand what you've gone through in life. I have no knowledge of your past, so I'm not going to judge you based on how you make those calls, because I have no knowledge of what you've gone through, because people are your environment, blah blah blah, I mean, might have shaped you. But I think where I'm just like, what you must try not to do is, or rather, even though I have no hope that they will do that, is then don't try to pass on your own shiggy and use it to spoil other people's blues. That sort of thing. Like that's the one that breaks
Unfortunately,
my
that,
heart.
that that that's never
And
going
that's
to
what, and,
change, right?
and
Because
and yeah, that's what I'm saying.
that's their paradigm, right? That's
Yeah,
that's their worldview.
yeah,
So that's why it's always good to consider other people's opinion, right? Everybody has become an relocation expert. Now they just land in Canada and everyone has a YouTube page and is sharing about life in Canada. And for some it might be helpful, for some it might just be discouraging and push them through a path. But I think for me, more often than not, I think that talking to people who are more optimistic would definitely get you further. It doesn't mean it's going to happen for you immediately, but at
yeah,
least you have an example of what
yeah,
it can look like for you as you try to navigate and transition.
yeah, yeah. It's that point you make about optimistic, because immigration is so hard that I'm sorry, if you see someone with a dark cloud, run so far away from them, because whether you like it or not, the dark
Yeah,
cloud will come for you.
yeah, it
Whether
will.
you like it, that dark cloud will come from you. Don't let someone else.
Subconsciously, we start to think this thing. You will not even realize it, right? That we're what we think,
Yeah,
and what we think is influenced by what we hear.
yeah,
What we hear, what we see. So our eyes are gates, our ears are gates. And whether you like it or not, whether you choose to participate or not, it's going to influence who you are, what you think about. Even when you think like, no, I cannot do it. But if you don't change the narrative, if you don't change the voices you're hearing, that voice is going to ring loud until you start to now believe it for yourself. So yeah, I would just say like again, I understand that not everybody has the privilege, for obviously, and things. And I'm not saying that obviously some people don't have it harder than the others. But I think, like I said, if you are willing there is more help today than it was 11. I think that's how we got here.
Yeah.
11 years ago, there were not a lot of these opportunities that people have today, like knowing the information ahead of time. I only learned how to use LinkedIn when I came here. So now you have the access to LinkedIn. Imagine saying you're coming into a country and you start to research people that are not even popular, willing to share their knowledge with you. Today, you can find people that are doing well that you can connect to. So, yeah,
I feel like this is a good place to end this. Like,
moving on.
so let's segue on from let's move on to other more
Please show the
safe.
nicer part of me because right now,
No, no, no. I just think you're being honest. To be honest, I think you're being honest. But talking about the business side of things, how's it been running a business in Canada? Black immigrant woman trying to find your way. Tell me about that.
hey, where do I start from?
Anywhere.
So I don't think I set out to be a business owner. To be honest, like it was not. I always say I am a happenstance entrepreneur. I think my life in Canada, like when I look at it, like the way like Canada chose me, I would say like my path for the most part has kind of chosen me. And then eventually I had to choose it, right? Because even if something chooses you, you have to decide you want to choose it back or, you just don't let. But I feel like entrepreneurship happened to me. So I'm also an actor, I'm a filmmaker beyond running a company. And actually, we're a team of 12 people right now at Shira. We have 4 people in Canada, 8 people overseas. And we I actually got into immigration because of film. I wanted to be an actor, and I'm like, my father has sent me overseas, spent $35,000 per year, paid living expense and things like that. I cannot afford to go back because I remembered after I finished school and I told my dad I didn't have money. He's like, "You're on your own. I've done my part. Now you're on your." He's like, "Now you're on your own." I'm like, "Wow, welcome to reality 101." Oh man, I started taking resumes everywhere, dropping resumes in person, and it was a bit cold. It was getting colder because this was fall, 2024, and so it was not an easy journey, like in terms of like transitioning into that. So I didn't even have like so moving into like a business, like I didn't want to be broke. So I told myself I'm not going to be a broke artist. Like I've heard people working at Starbucks and things like that. I'm like, I cannot afford to tell my parents that they sent me abroad and I'm working at I'm a barrister, trying to make my African parents. So I cannot afford to do that. So I needed something that could make me money while I was on the road, on the move. And again, immigration was just all around me. My landlady was an immigration consultant. I used to have a client at the bank who was also an immigration consultant. And I was just always, I'm naturally curious about people. And I've always asked them. And I just felt like, you know what, this is something that, because I saw my landlady, she didn't go to an office, she worked from home, she traveled a lot, she was going back and forth between Nigeria and Canada. I'm like, this is something I can actually do. And that's how in 2017. And then the one place that actually finally made me decide that I wanted to do this, 2017, I went back to Nigeria, went to do a couple of stuff in the film space. A former client of mine from the bank, on Facebook reached out to me and said, Bukky, I have something for entertainers who want to move to Canada. There's this media pathway. Are you in, I would give you X amount of money for every referral that you bring. I'm like, whoa, okay, let's do this. At first, actually, I did not say let's do it because I was just like, me, become an immigration consultant. Like, after, like, no shade to immigrant because I'm an immigration consultant now, but like at the time, it just felt like, because again, back to what we're talking about service, our people don't value it. So they just look down on you. Like, so you came to Canada. after
To
masters.
become
This is
I
how you
see.
now became an immigration consultant. And people just want to take advantage because they don't value it. They
Yeah.
don't see the value in it. And so I've seen it happen a lot. And I was just like, I didn't want to be ridiculed. But I remembered having an epiphany. I would never forget. I was in Walmart. I was trying on a shoe in Walmart, and I'd been like praying, thinking, what do I want to do? How do I go about this? And it just dawned on me, this is it. Immediately, right there, I dropped the shoe, called the guy that told me, and I said, I'm ready. Next weekend, I was in Edmonton learning, him signing me up on the platform that they had and things like that. And that was how my journey started. June 2017. January 2018, I got the very first client, a set of triplets. And that's how the journey has evolved since then. So from then, from being an immigration, I wasn't even licensed at the time. I got my license later in 2020, to consulting to now a tech platform. We have made some changes and some strides along the way.
So for me, I think the thing I always find interesting is you didn't run business in Nigeria, so it's it's not exactly a straightforward question. But really, if you think about how what you experienced in Nigeria, whether either from your dad, if your dad had a business, or other folks, and then you see the way you run business here.
So to be honest, I have no
View.
frame of reference because again, I'm not from my mom used to run a business a little bit when we were growing up. But my dad was never a business person. I didn't know any business people. That's why I said like it wasn't something that was intentional, like I'd seen. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I want to go into business. No, it was just something like, oh, let's do on the side. And then in 2020, I decided just before COVID, imagine the worst timing, just before COVID, I decided I wanted to make it full time. Ha, got into it. And then it was challenging, but it was also good. So obviously, we're running, I think, even though I don't have a frame of reference from a business standpoint, but from dealing with clients from Nigeria, you can kind of see how businesses are done because the expectations of people, how they want you to treat them. And so when you're actually professional, people are shocked because they just expect the Nigerian thing, even if you're a Canadian company. They still just expect that Nigerian way. And we had obviously Nigerian connections because we had a WhatsApp based out of Nigeria. We had a team that managed the WhatsApp. So there was still just that way where I don't want to book for a service. I just want you to tell me everything I need to know on this call right now. Or I only deal with WhatsApp. I'm not going to send an email. You have to send me all the documents via WhatsApp. I'm not going to use an email. Just all of those things. Like I'm not a WhatsApp person. In fact, if you send me an email, I can answer you in 5 minutes. WhatsApp, I can take the whole day because I'm just when it comes to business, my brain is wired to go to email. WhatsApp is like a quick call, quick message. And I always tell my team, especially my Nigerian team, that's one of the tussles we have the first 3 months when they come, is don't do WhatsApp with me. WhatsApp is for quick things.
And just to kind of as we kind of head to the end of this, if you think about with all that's going on right now in immigration, it's an interesting time. I think two things for me is where do you see where do you think we're heading to as a country in immigration? Like, because it worries me at times. Some of the conversations I see, like one is where do you think we're heading to? Immigration positive, immigration negative, or somewhere neutral? Just a thought. And then the second one is for anyone looking to move to Canada in 2025, 2026. Any thoughts on that?
Okay, so the first one is obviously, I know that people may think that this is like new,
Mm,
strange, but one message that I've been saying that has not changed is immigration hasn't actually changed as much as people think. Have there been changes? Absolutely. Before the popularity and that started off in 2018, there was a wave of this going viral in Nigeria in 2018. 2018 was when it became viral. Extra Century started in 2015. But it became viral as a thing in 2018. That's when people were like, oh my God, this thing exists. But the policy and the way that things, when it comes to, let's say, study permit, hasn't changed significantly, at least from a business standpoint. Some of the things we used to advise clients to do is still the same thing we still tell clients to do today. The only thing now is government is now basically saying to people, we're making this a rule or we're making it a law that if you're coming with this, because prior to now, when people want to come with their families, especially if you're from Africa, the data is there. There's some for some countries where in Africa where the refusal rate is like 64%, meaning 6 to 7 applications out of every 10 applications is refused. So one of the things that we've always advised clients is on proof of funds. And if you still do that till today, you will be fine. I know that immigration has changed a lot. And there are maybe things, I think the only part that is maybe significantly different is like the proof of funds you have to show. The proof of funds used to be $10,000 and then now it's like close to 22,000, which puts a huge strain on people. But obviously, I think the shakeup is actually needed because the government welcomed way too many people. I can't tell you how many people called us who came here on a visitor's visa because an agent in Nigeria told them once they get into Canada, they're going to get a work permit. Canada will just give it to them. And they came in, imagine a family of six. We had two of those cases. They're here on a visitor's visa expecting to get a job. And they're realizing I still have to go through the LMI. There's no job just waiting for me. So these are things that there was a lot of misinformation from our government in terms of language. You're a media person. The language that the government used in communicating this thing was very false. Government made it sound like if you come in and then bad actors capitalized on that. But when people had come to professionals like us, we had told them the same thing. This doesn't change any of the policy. All they're basically saying is if you're already in Canada as a visitor, you can apply. You don't need to leave the country for you to start working. You can just go to the border and get your work permit. That was the only thing. But the policy to get that work permit did not change from what it was before. You still need an LMIA. So most things, maybe there are some nuances and a few things that change, but most things have remained the same. So in terms of where immigration is going, I think immigration is just going to return to maybe pre 2018, which is
Interesting.
where there is a system, there's a logical system, except for now it's going to be a maze. You're going to have to be very skillful in order to navigate the maze. Unlike in 2018 where it was straightforward. I just have my, plug in my numbers, I have my points, Express entry, here I come. Now it's going to be a maze because even people who are in Canada are struggling to get their permanent residency because of the way the point system is going.
Yeah.
So as we look forward, people who are, again, I'll always say it is what I've always said. If you're planning to come to Canada, make sure that you know and you plan for you have contingency plans, especially when you're coming temporarily, you're coming as a student. If you're coming as a permanent resident, you already got it, that's fine. But the numbers for those who can come as a permanent resident, if it was 50% before, it's definitely shrunk to maybe 5% from overseas. Not just for Nigerians, but for so many other people. Because now, look at the draws that have been happening. It's now been 8 months. There's been no draw for those who are in the pool without provincial nomination or Canadian experience. That should tell you something. So monitor the trends. Make sure monitor the trends, do all of those things and make an informed decision. It's always better. Don't just go with, oh, this person just did it this way. What worked for your friend last year is not going to work for you this year.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot
Yeah.
of people get into trouble because they're like, but you're telling me, but I know a friend that did it, but
Yeah.
it's changed. Immigration as we know it is gone. So because most of the immigration people know is post 2018. When we finished from Canada, it took us 3 years to get permanent residency. It was easier for, again, that's why I said most things that people are saying now, like immigration has just become really, no. It's just because we had a government that overthrew the policy that was supposed to be there. So I would just say that that's what you should do. And then, so for people that are not looking to come into Canada, what should they be looking out for? Honestly, right now, the study pathway is still the best pathway for you to come in, unless you can qualify for permanent residency. And for you to qualify for permanent residency, places like Ontario, although they've paused their immigration policy, they've not been inviting, or immigration draws, but they've not been inviting people. But we would probably start to see more. I think they're waiting on the federal government from what it is. It's because the provinces mirror the federal government. They always mirror the federal government. Alberta is still going strong, but you must have a job offer. While places like Ontario is still going strong when it comes to those who have job offers. But those people who don't have job offers in Canada are going to have to maybe consider the study route. That
Mm.
would be my recommendation to people. I don't recommend the visitors visa route and then come and apply for a job inside Canada. That because it's very tricky. You can spend months waiting for a job, and your bills are racking up pretty much. But that's why we're here. We have a platform that connects you with immigration consultants. Always get real life, real time information before. Also, consider the province you're going to. Before, we used to tell people if you're above 30, don't pick an Ontario because it knocks you out. But now, it's even if you're in your 20s now, it's not for everybody. If you're in your 20s, you need to especially if you're coming for a postgraduate program, you need to carefully think about what province do you go to. Consider provinces that actually have a pathway. Even if you come as a student, you still need to consider provinces that have a pathway for you. Look at what are the occupations in demand, in the provinces. There are certain things that have not changed in the last 2 years. Some would still change, but look at what is kind of like in demand and go and flow. Plus, nothing is constant. Once you're done with school, you should be looking at, okay, what is my pathway? The other thing I would tell people is try to consider doing a 2 year program. I know 2 year programs can be expensive. So if you choose to do a 1 year program, as soon as you get into Canada, consider adding an additional year so you can extend your program from 1 year to 2 years so you can qualify for at least 3 years program. That's still an option for people because 3 years will give you breathing room as opposed to 1 year and you're scrambling. So again, don't listen to the masses. Don't listen to your friend that did it last year. It's not the best news. And then pay for a professional, even if it's a 30 minutes, 1 hour conversation. Make sure that your thoughts process are solid. Make sure that the places, because there's some people that are DIY people, they can do it themselves. That's great. But make sure your thought process is solid before embarking on the journey.
Thank you so much. That was pretty dope advice, honestly. Thank you. This was good. At least we did just only just say things that people don't like, I guess.
Well, hopefully they like this part. Hopefully, it's not a, we don't, it's not a, it might not be what people like to hear, but it is
No, I
what
mean
it
the
is
truth
right
is
now.
it's good to hear. People need to also hear the truth at times. I honestly think we need to hear the truth at times. Well, thank you so much. This has been a well spent 40 minutes plus.
I'm glad.
Bookie's such an interesting lady, honestly. I mean, I like what she says. She calls herself happenstance entrepreneur. But yeah, again, like I said earlier on, find optimistic people. Yeah. For me, that's my biggest takeaway on this. Just find optimistic people, please. As always, please like, please share, please subscribe, please send someone who might find this useful. Because Bukky does share a ton of really great tips on how to think about immigration if you're planning to move to Canada in 2025 and beyond. If you know someone we should talk to, please send them my way. Have a beautiful day. Ciao.